Today I'm going to briefly go over how to adjust your headset. So if you have a threadless system, basically what's going to be adjusting and tightening your headset and fork is going to be your end cap right here. Now in order to do that, you have to loosen your stem clamp so that the steer tube on the fork moves freely inside the stem clamp, up and down, right? I'm going to use this little setup here where I have a piece of a steer tube with some spacers. It's always good to have extra spacers if you work on bikes or if you have more than one bike. And the thing is that you need to have space between your steer tube and your spacer in order for this to tighten your fork or tighten your headset. You can see the way I have it here right now, there's the steer tube actually goes above the spacer, and that will not work. Because if you tighten that, then you're just tightening against the steer tube and nothing is moving your steer tube up and down. So you have to make sure that when you put your spacers in, either the edge of the stem, the top edge of the stem, or the top edge of a spacer, because you can have spacers below and above the stem. You have to make sure that you have, I'd say about 1/8 to a 1/4 of an inch above, so that you have room to adjust, or about 5 millimeters or such. So right about there would be good. That way when you put your top cap on, your top cap is going to press against the spacer or the stem, and it's going to pull that steer tube up towards it, thereby tightening your headset and your fork. Now in this case I don't have anything in there, but on your fork there will be the star nut in there where this is going to thread, and that's going to pull the whole tube up towards the edge of your spacer or the edge of your stem. So here what I first did was I loosened the stem clamp. If you have that clamped, just like I explained before, you're going to be tightening. It's going to go against the clamped stem that doesn't let the steer tube move up towards it, and you're basically going to do nothing. So I loosened my stem clamp. Now I can tighten here, and as I tighten, it's going to pull that steer tube up and give me adjustment here on that headset. Now on this particular bike, the way I bought it was like this. It might benefit from a slightly wider spacer right here, so that there's a little bit more room. The other thing I noticed on this bike is that that star nut, one, it's really close to the top, so I might pound it down a little bit more, but it's also crooked in there, so that if I do this and I tighten this bolt, it's gonna catch the edge right there. It's catching the edge of my top cap. So what you do here is just position your top cap into the bolt, so recessed in there first, then tighten this. Make sure you don't pinch your finger, but then as you tighten that star nut inside is going to give enough so that it falls where it's supposed to. So right there it's a little crooked, and there it went right into where it's supposed to. It's nice and flat all around. So I will tighten this enough so that there's no play, but that the steering still feels smooth and moves freely. If you tighten it too much, you will feel a little resistance as you turn the handlebars, so the steering will be a little heavy. That means it's too tight. So tighten enough so where the play is gone, but not too much where it's affecting the steering, where it's making the steering a little stiff. Good way to check is, here's my hand, the front tire's up here. I'm going to put it on the front tire, push back on the tire as I push forward. So I'm pushing that way on the stem, that way on the tire, and then back and forth, and make sure there's no play. So there's no play there, and I'm still moving freely. When you do that, don't be too aggressive, because if your fork moves, it'll give you the impression that there's still some play when there's really not. If you have a lock on your fork, lock your fork before you do that. So now after that, I'll leave that alone. There's no torque value to that. It's just, like I explained, enough so where there's no play and you can still steer freely. Once we bolt this in, this will be torqued to specs. Your clamp there for your stem. And then that whole system between the clamp and this is what's going to hold your fork to your bike. So that's it in a nutshell. If you have any questions, put them down below. If you like my videos, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and as always, thanks for watching.